And what is up, everybody? Those of you who are going to be watching live eventually, I think, and watching later on, Jim Christopher here doing another off day. Right now, we are solo, but I think we're going to have some friends coming along. But I'm doing this for me. I'm not usually selfish, trying to be a giver, but I wanted to be the therapist for myself and what's going on with the Houston Astros right now. And I thought I'd be some therapy for people like again that are watching now or be listening live soon. The Astros are getting ready to have a first pitch against the Seattle Mariners. The series has actually gone very much like I thought it would end result wise. Not how much we didn't really get there, but again, we all thought we needed some therapy, and I'm a big movie TV guy, and I thought, what better way to kick it off than with this song?
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salads and scrambled eggs.
Let me be your Astros therapist, because we could have easily gone with, for those of you who are my age know, the MASH theme song, Suicide is Painless. There are something like 16, it's either 15, 16, or a zillion Astros on the injured list right meow. And 5 of them, I think, are starters, some pitchers. I mean, look, it's tough out there. And it's very easy to look at. It's like this. If the Astros had rolled McCullers out and he got blown up, which he did, and then the score had kind of stayed the way it was, I think reactions to the end result might have been a little less extreme. Instead, last night, the game got real weird, real fast. Josh Hader on the hit by pitch, PFP, I don't know what was happening, led to the game getting tied. So it was almost like how I like beating the Rangers in extra innings so you can take a little bit of their soul with them. Or in 2005, when I went and watched Vince Young play a really close game against the Aggies, but wasn't that close, but it was just close enough that you felt like you were taking a piece of their soul. Well, that's what happened last night. You had a little piece of your soul taken. So yeah, it's not, man, it's not ideal. And I tried to do my best to like rationalize how I try to deal with losses weirdly or differently. One, I'll usually go and troll Astros fans that are morons, which I recognize it's not really good for myself. And there were plans, my wife and I, yesterday evening that I was just not interested in anymore. That's what the Astros took from me. So whatever they took from you, that's what they took from me. But the reality is this: you can only go on the information that you have, and the information that that we have now as Astros fans is that there is being progress made with some of these people that are on the IL, some of these players. And Arrighetti, I think, had 3 scoreless for Corpus. Javier had 3 scoreless for Corpus. I would assume that sometime in early August, Javier and Spaghetti will be back on the team. Well, all of a sudden, that makes that starting rotation, and we're going to talk a little Lance McCullers in a minute, but that makes that starting rotation a little bit longer. Plus, it'll push those guys into the bullpen, so it makes the bullpen hopefully a little bit better. So we're not having to sign Hector Neris and then roll the dice that somehow 2022 Hector Neris is going to walk out, which you saw that in the first 2 outings against the Rangers, and then decidedly did not see that Friday or Saturday night. So that's the benefit. I refuse to be the guy that gives up on the squad because of what has been a pretty, even if they win today, a pretty shitty 9 games in a row. I just refuse to do it. It's not my nature. And one of the things, though, that I have a hard time doing, again, because therapy, is separating how people react publicly on Twitter to sports and then people's own like moral character. And so sometimes I get really irritated when I see people give up on the team and act like it's all over and blah, 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 blah. There's no point. Knowing a couple of things. One, if they go on a run, you're going to be the first one that's back saying, let's go. World Series or bust. World Series back on, right? what's the meme with Idris Elba from The Wire, the show everybody tells me I should watch, and I've tried like 7 times and I can't get through 3 episodes. And then they're like, no, you just got to get to the 3rd season. And I'm like, I don't have time for the 3rd season if that's what you need me to do. But yeah, they go on a roll. They're going to be the first ones back. But also, I have a hard time going, like, if you're going to give up on your sports team, what else do you quit on? Like, what else do you, and maybe that's what sports does for people. You actually can kind of throw a temper tantrum or whatever, but throwing a temper tantrum about this team isn't helpful. And I don't think it's worth the energy yet. We'll talk a little bit about yesterday's game, because again, yesterday's game got weird, and I think Joe Espada, who I generally speaking think is a very good manager, and I think will be a very good manager, I think he got a little caught up in having to win last night. And I don't like Josh Hader for 2 innings. I especially don't like Josh Hader for 2 innings going into extras, because of the way the extra inning rule is set up. Like, it's easy to give up a run and be perfect in that inning. And so to me, you've now burned Josh Hader by pitching him in the 10th inning last night on what is a 50-50 coin flip of a situation. I mean, you saw the Astros score in the top of the 10th with the bottom of their lineup, because there you're going to play small ball. You bunted a guy over, then you hit a sacrifice fly. Ipso facto, you score a run. You don't do that in the top of the 11th because you've got the meat of the order up. So I don't like burning Josh Hader for 2 innings, basically with one of them being an extra inning. So again, it got weird. But I don't think it's worth completely bailing on this team. We are 9 games away from the Astros having gone through a 15-game gauntlet in which they won 12 of them, all against first place teams. And the injury to Paredes felt devastating. And I even was like rationalizing it, trying to I think it's a cramp. I don't know. I mean, could have been a cramp, I guess. I guess the bright spot is that it's the other hamstring, not the one that was hurt before. But it would be really easy to jump off the bandwagon at that point. But I still believe if the guys that are supposed to come back relatively soon, and like next 2 weeks, right? I don't know that I'll feel the same way if we're 1 month out and they're still not back. But if I think next to 2 weeks, the Astros tread water, then yeah, I think you can have the highest level of expectations for this team. I don't think Seattle is good as they played for the last 5 games. Seattle's 5 games removed from having a no-hitter get 1 out in the 8th and then lose the game by hemorrhaging 5 runs. This is not a perfect baseball team either, and they don't traditionally spend. Not worried about Seattle. Detroit is having somehow even a worse time than we're having by having gotten swept by Seattle and probably going to get swept by the Rangers today. So I can't get the expectations that if these guys come back and Dana Brown does make some moves at the deadline, then I don't know why you wouldn't think that the sky is still the limit for this team. I do question some decisions. I don't understand. And I don't know, like, I didn't look at the days, and I don't know. It's probably smarter to give them extra days off. But I mean, imagine if you had Hunter Brown or Fromber throwing yesterday. I don't know, if wishes were horses, then beggars would ride, or whatever it is. I don't even know what that means. If anybody knows what that means, let me know. But what if you had started those games yesterday? One of those guys yesterday, we probably win. And instead, what you've got is you got Hunter Brown, our best, arguably, versus theirs. And so this is going to be one of those games that an outside baseball observer and one who's not emotionally tied to the Astros would probably love to watch. But it's could absolutely go either way. And because I have this deep down theory that God kind of hates me, I expect it to maybe not be the best. But you play on. I will say that I will be blaming my dentist for what happened yesterday, because when I went to get my exam, he did point out that Paredes was tearing things up while Bregman was hurt again. And the baseball gods did not like that. So I will be mentioning that to him when I see him. He watches our other show. I don't know if he watches this one. So I hope he doesn't, because now I might have just gotten less Novocaine for the next time I have a procedure. But look, this is not a knee-jerk reaction show. If you pay attention to what Andy and I talk about, and we'll be back Monday, Andy will be with us, my co-host, who's as handsome as I am, you know that we're not a knee-jerk reaction type of show. And what's funny is he and I can be very knee-jerk reaction-y to each other. We can have our moments. When he texted me about Paredes' hamstring, I just told him I don't want to talk about it. But we make a point that to put our right head on before we do this show. And when I say that, you have to have a Lance McCullers conversation. And I love Lance McCullers as much as the next guy. He will always be a legend in the city of Houston, not just for, the 38 curved balls or however many it was, or what he's done in the community, animal rescue, and all of that stuff. But he is not a competitive major league pitcher anymore. He is not giving you anything. And it was super frustrating yesterday because a little bit of luck actually went his way and kept him from really imploding in the second inning. And what I would have hoped, again, I'm a Joe Espada guy, but what I would have hoped is that Joe Espada would not have looked at the outcome of that inning, but instead looked at how they got there and realized that Lance didn't have it. And if you're prepared to go to Gusto for some length, then they should have gone to Gusto for some length earlier in that process. So you have to have an honest conversation about Lance McCullers. And, the honest conversation can't be to trade him, because nobody would want him. And I don't know the ins and outs of all of it. I understand that you can't, that the only reason, in my opinion, that he is still on the major league team has almost nothing to do with baseball reasons. And it has everything to do with, you can't DFA him because you're going to eat the contract, and Jim Crane didn't want to do that, and you can't send him down. If it were any of those things, like if those things were really on the table, he wouldn't be pitching anymore. Convinced. And there's a lot of who would you put in front of him, and you can't just say anybody would be better, but maybe anybody would be better at this point in their career. But, AJ Blueblow, who was our, going to be our big guy, had a decent one or two outings. Okay. Ryan Gusto back in the rotation, I think, is a better option than Lance McCullers. And it's not personal. And, anybody that threatens him or gets this way over a baseball game probably should go to real therapy and not just pretend online Twitter therapy. But yeah, you want to, you got to be competitive. This team is going to win on pitching and opportune offense. And it's incredibly difficult for this lineup, though they did it yesterday, to, in the second or third inning, look up and have it be a 4-1 deficit and reasonably expect them to win. It's hard to get anybody to do that. This lineup in particular, when really and truly you are rolling out on any given Sunday, weird, you are rolling out a lineup that is 6 people deep. That's really what it is. You're 6 people deep. You don't have any of the horses that you will have hopefully in a couple of weeks when Yordan Alvarez comes back. And so you have to put yourself in the best position to win. And what I think bums me out a little bit is, by extending Hader, for example, last night into 2 innings, well, now you've got your horse on the mound. Okay, you've got Hunter Brown. You've got a guy that you expect to go out and to give you enough length to win the game and hold the other team down, despite he's had a rough couple of starts. You expect that out of him, but you don't have your elite bullpen. You don't have your elite closer available to you tonight if he does do that. And I'm not saying you should give up. It just seems to me that, like I was saying earlier, the way extra innings works, it is such a flip of a coin, and it is such a luck factor built in that you hate to go all in on a game like that and then end up losing it, and then end up losing tonight as well, because now you don't have Hader available. And I'm just going to assume the Hader's not going to be available after going 2 innings and 30 gazillion pitches. So the Astros now have Brian Wu, and the goal, up against Brian Wu tonight. And the goal's got to be to see pitches and wear them out and get to their bullpen as well. And I know that Cam Smith just grounded out, but at least he did see 6 or 7 pitches. So you've got to have good at bats, and you've got to be able to really grind these games out if you want to win. Well, the question becomes, if you lose tomorrow, if you lose today, today's not a must-win game. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe in the notion of a must-win game in July when you're up by 3 games. And it's not a quitter's mentality. It's not anything other than realistic. Must-win means your season's over if you don't win it. And guess what's going to happen, win or lose, tomorrow? They're going to go play in Arizona. And they're going to have a reasonable chance to win that game. Arizona's pretty hot right now. I think they've won 5 straight, but I think they're a better team than Arizona, even as constructed right now. So you can't, it's not healthy for you as fans, or for us as fans, to put that level of pressure on a team and say, or on ourselves and say, look, this is a must-win game. It's a football mentality. And even in football, it's overused. It's not a must-win game today. The Astros have what will be a relatively I just got a text message from Andy, our co-host, who will not be joining us today. I won't read the rest of it. But no, you can't view these things as a must-win game when you're this early still in the season. We're about a beginning to have our last third of the season coming up. You have a 2-game lead, and you have a really lighter schedule coming up that you can actually navigate some of this lineup and injury bullshit with the guys that you have that are going to be coming back. One thing that I can't say enough about, and I'm bringing it up actually as he just got a base hit. I'm not doing play-by-play, Astros, so please don't sue me. But we got to talk a little bit about Carantini, because this guy needs more playing time. And I think he reached base, was it 5 times yesterday or 6? He's got a base hit already, which first time through the order, the more that you see Brian Wu, the better. And so if the Astros score or don't score, to me, you're getting him to maybe 20 pitches, hopefully 20 pitches in the first inning. You're already exposing him a little bit to maybe not even necessarily knocking him around a little bit, but shortening the amount of time he's going to be able to be in the game. And I think that's got to be the key. That's what the Astros used to be so good at, was waiting for the bullpen and feasting on it. But the signing Carantini, I think, is one of the big pieces of proof when people want to say Dana Brown's a bad GM. Dana Brown's not a bad GM. That Carantini signing was brilliant. One of the things, though, that I have an issue with, that I'm a little worried about when it comes to all of this stuff, I'm not worried. I said this on to somebody this morning. I'm not worried about whether or not Christian Walker is going to find it again. And in part because Christian Walker has a long history of being a professional baseball player. I don't use the phrase back of the baseball card because people get real angry about that one. But he's got a long history of being a good baseball player. Yanier Diaz doesn't. And so the more I watch him time after time after time come up short, and in a lineup that's struggling and beat up, I don't know how long you can do that. I don't really know how long you can run him out and expect any kind of a decent result from him. I believe Carantini needs to be starting at catcher. I don't know who the better defensive catcher is. I don't know who handles pitchers better. That used to be the argument with Maldonado, was he clearly was better at those other things. And so it was okay that he didn't hit. I was going to say he didn't even hit my weight, but I'm sort of fat. So that's not a fair request for anybody. But no, he didn't. It was okay that he didn't have any offense. Yanier Diaz's job is to hit home runs and drive in runners, and he hasn't done that. And he's got an OPS of about 640 right now. I can look at right here. Okay, so 670, and Christian Walker discays, so his goes down a little bit. We're gonna start spelling his name with a K now, everybody, and all you influencers out there, that's what we're doing. But all in all, they made Wu work a little bit. 18 pitches, not great, but it's better than the 8 or 9 that we've sometimes seen. But I do think, speaking of Christian Walker, all of this sort of hate and wanting him to be benched and cut and whatever, I think that you're forgetting that he's also, for as much as he's struggled, although he's won a few games for you too. So for as much as all of that's been a thing, he's an elite defensive first baseman. And part of what comes with building a team on run prevention, which is what the Astros have done, is you cannot, because you have feelings and vibes, starting John Singleton at first base over Christian Walker on the regular basis, because it's a great story, because you give up too much defensively at first base. I know who Johnny Singleton is. I know what he can and can't do. And I know that he's occasionally going to run into one and hit it over the fence. Right now, my starting lineup would have Carantini at catcher, Christian Walker at first base, and John Singleton is your DH. That, I think, is probably the best alignment that the Astros can hope for right now with the situation as it is. And the whole thing's bizarre to me because the Astros medical staff has not earned any real benefit of the doubt from Stros fans. To say that they appear incompetent is a compliment and maybe an insult to truly incompetent people. But, I give them a little bit of pass for Peña's hairline fracture and, the moving and the discomfort when you're an athletic shortstop and you're a trunk area. I don't even want to think about it. I'm beginning to, for as much as it matters, like whenever you see Astros fans, I'm not going to take it anymore on Twitter, or I can't stand it anymore. Well, who gives a shit what you can or can't take? You're not running the team. So what matters, what I care about, who gives a shit? But for me, there is a certain part of, okay, Jordan, your hand hurts, but it's not broken. There's nothing structurally wrong based on all the information that we have. You swing a bat 12 times a game. That is your job. That's it. And I'm not one for, like, those of you who follow me on Twitter know that I'm pretty patient with players. And I think the fan concept of rubbing some dirt on it and moving on is silly. Again, it kind of dates back to being a football fan in some degrees. But in this particular instance, Jordan's already a roster problem in a way because he is a youngish guy that can't play the outfield. They can't play the field, which means Jose Altuve, who by all rights on any other team would be the DH because he's too old to play good defense, but he can still hit. So now he's a liability out there wherever he's playing. I don't know what or why or but if there's nothing structurally wrong with the hand and they've diagnosed it correctly and he's still got pain, that to me seems like take some Tylenol and get after it. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm probably oversimplifying. And I'm, again, not a professional athlete. I'm clearly not super in tune to the shape and state of my body, but it seems to me that at some point you got to kind of move through it. Like, again, I would never compare myself to Yordan Alvarez for many, many reasons. But, I was talking a little bit earlier about how, like, I can't help but when I see somebody give up on the Astros, I'm like, what? Why would you give up? What kind of quitter are you? Blah, 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 blah. And I usually make some joke about stay out of my foxhole. Well, I'm a vet. And not only am I a vet, I'm a vet that's technically disabled. I've got 2 shredded knees with no cartilage in them that I've not gotten replaced because the VA wants to do it, and I'm afraid to like replace my elbows instead or something because the VA. But when I'm doing Amazon Prime's Ballpark Nation, check it out, season 1 live now. But I haul about 60 or 70 pounds of gear for probably usually get to a ballpark at 1:30 and I leave whenever the game is over. So however long that is, 8 or 9 hours. Yeah, I'm pretty smoked. I'm pretty miserable. But you do it to get the job done. And so I don't think that like he just can't handle pain or whatever. To me, it just seems really, really weird. And I would, for one, like to or hope for to see him back out there sooner than later. Because I do think even more than Pena, just putting his name in a lineup card makes a difference. Like I think Walker's having a better year if Jordan had been around. I think the protection in the lineup, all of that stuff. I just moved over to the StatCast. Does anybody else hold their breath now when it says injury delay? And then I'm like, well, it's injury delay, and it's Hunter Brown pitching. Did his arm fall off? But I'm guessing whoever fouled a ball off of himself hurt himself temporarily. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm staying positive because if it's a foregone conclusion that the Astros aren't going to make the playoffs and they're not going to be good and they should sell at the deadline and all that stuff, then why watch? Like, what's the point? And I approach fandom, particularly with my Astros fandom and my Longhorn fandom, like it's a passion for me. And I think the only way to approach things is to be positive and is to look at, and it's not even sunshine pumping. There are reasons as an Astros fan sitting here right now, even though they lost yesterday and they are, for whatever it matters, projected to not win today. There are reasons why you should be really positive about the direction of the team. If two things occurs, those players come back, and I think you can look at one of two things. You can either just assume they're not going to, or assume they are. And I think they're going to come back. I think we can discuss, and we probably will tomorrow, about whether or not they should have a minor league rehab start or not, but I think they should come back. And so hold on. I think that they'll come back. And so I also do not believe that Dana Brown is going to want to waste the last year of Framber Valdez and this pitching staff and how well the bullpen has thrown. Those four elements, Hader, Abreu, and Valdez and Hunter Brown, those four people, that's enough to win you a playoff series with some decent bats. And I cannot imagine that Jim Crane or Dana Brown are going to let those opportunities go to the wayside. I just don't. You got to love it when Hunter Brown gets baseballed with a 75 mile an hour off the bat exit velo base hit. Hopefully he can bounce out of this and keep a decent pitch count going. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, let me know in the comments if y'all what the vibe is for y'all. But I feel like there's plenty of reason to stay positive about this Astros team. I don't think that there's any reason to give up. I think there are teams that are way, way worse. And it's what a difference 9 games makes. The 12 games before this, the Astros were world beaters that are going to win the World Series no matter what. And then you had some weird games thrown in there and some weird losses and another injury, and all of a sudden they can't beat anybody. And so neither of those things I think is completely accurate. So you got to just decide or hope which one you think is the one that's the more realistic option. And I prefer to think that the Astros have as good a chance as anybody to get in the playoffs and make some noise. The other thing you're going to hear is you have to have the first seed. And I don't want to get up and grab it because I don't want you to see my belly because the way my office is laid out. But yeah, let me just tell you how much it matters to have the highest seed in the playoffs as opposed to just barely getting in. And that's me looking at the replica 2019 American League Championship trophy on my shelf over there, which is not a replica 2019 World Series championship, because an 80 something win Nationals team got into the playoffs and got on a run. That's literally what happened. And that's literally all you need to have happen to win in baseball, because unlike other sports, the playoffs in baseball are not reflective of the regular season. And so I don't understand so much doom and gloom out of the fan base when everything about the way the game rolls, everything that expert models predict, and everything that your own experience as fans should tell you that there is plenty of opportunity for these Astros to make a run and win the whole thing. And, you know, how amazing would that be? Look, and I'm not, and it's weird because I think the thing we all, as Astros fans, need to really recognize, and again, I'm looking around and I've actually got authentic, not reprinted, on my wall up there. I've got a 1986 NL Western Division Championship. God, the good old days. When Dodgers fans want to say there's no history between those teams, I'm like, isn't there? And then I've got pennants for the 97, 98 championships. If you look at the recent history of this team, it's been an amazing run. And somehow they've been able to pull things off one after another after another. And I look at the history of this team versus the recent history, and yeah, I understand that dark days are probably coming and that the times will get lean, and the fan bases, luckily, probably the fan base will thin itself out a little bit. But the reality is we're in the middle of a really good run that the Astros have basically done a really good job of making happen. And I think next year there's opportunity to be better, because I think you're going to have a lot of salary cleared up. Now, the trade deadline, that's the thing. And the thing I'm hearing more and more from people is, you don't want to know this. I've got like 17 bottles of these. I don't know which one's current. Is there's nothing in the farm to trade. There's no way to make a deal. Nobody's going to want to make a deal with us. And we've heard that like every season for the last 3 years. And yet every year the Astros have somehow managed to make a deal that has made this team better. Kikuchi last year being chief among them. I do not expect the Astros to be quiet during the deadline. I do not expect the Astros to not make a deal that's going to make this team better. And I think they'll be creative when they do it. They might have to take on money. You might see some prospects that for some reason we've fallen in love with as fans that don't really measure up, I guess. You might see Bryce Matthews get traded next year or at the trade deadline. And I'm okay with that. The only player that you would consider a prospect at this point in time that I would say is hands off is obviously Cam Smith. And I think we can move past the fact that he's now just a regular. He is not a prospect anymore. And he's not one of those guys that's dealable. But to me, everybody else should be on the table. No one should be, no one is precious. And think about all the years where the Astros didn't trade Forrest Whitley. Now they didn't have to, and clearly it worked out. But prospects, when you hold on to them because you're just so certain that they're going to do something, a lot of times they'll end up being Kyle Tucker. A lot of times they end up being Forrest Whitley. And when that happens, you've basically invested all of that time and money for nothing. So yeah, I'm not going to be tied to anybody that the Astros have in Sugarland, or maybe a bubble, 4A guy going up and down, or double A. I don't care about woodpeckers or tourists or hooks or space cowboys. I care about the Astros. And I think we need to back away from that a little bit. I think I understand it. We all want these guys that come out of nowhere, and there's the hero story of the guy that plays above his skis and he's the scrappy guy, because that's the people that probably as fans we see ourselves in, right? But we can't get too tied to those guys. If they trade all of them for a decent reliever or a left-handed hitting second baseman, is that a thing, by the way? I don't know. I know Andy and I are going to talk a little bit of trade tomorrow, but yeah, I mean, can't get tied to those guys. So that's kind of, you all got upset about Joey Loperfido. I don't know what Joey Loperfido is doing now, but I don't think he's starting for a Major League Baseball team. And so I think you've got to have some faith in this front office. There's never been an example where Jim Crane's Astros haven't at least done something to try to make the team better and to win. And so I would prefer, and it seems smarter, to save all of those criticism and all that angst and all that stress until they don't do anything. So, yeah. So that is, I think, probably going to go ahead and wrap me up. This went a little bit longer than I thought, but it was fun. Maybe we'll do it again next Sunday. Astros are still tied with the Mariners. Oh, look, Yonder Diaz struck out. Let's see. Oh, and at least one of the pitches he swung at was in the zone. Womp, womp, womp. Andy and I will be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central Time. Thanks a lot for those of you who watched live. We will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, go Stro.